Welcome, my name is Markkus True. I'm Head of Treatment and Counselling at Broadway Lodge. Welcome to the Miracle Mansion podcast. I have with me, do you want to introduce yourself, fella?
My name's Andy.
Okay, Andy has come from Bristol. As you can, I don't know whether you probably picked up, but he doesn't have a Bristolian accent.
No, still got the Mancunian twang.
That's it. But just firstly, I just want to say to everybody that are listening to this podcast, please like, subscribe, tell a friend about the podcast so that we can get more people interested, not just in the podcast, but in people's stories of addiction and definitely recovery, because that's what we're all about. We want to get more people into recovery and certainly more people coming to a wonderful miracle mansion known as Broadway Lodge. So I'll tell you how it started. How I decided on Sunday. I woke up in the morning and I thought I've got to arrange a podcast, and I'd had a conversation with one of your sponsees. Yeah, I had a conversation with him, and I just thought to myself, wow, considering the age differences and the change in him as a result of the work that you're doing with him, I thought, yes, I've got to get Manchester Andy in just to have a chat. And obviously I know how well you've been doing. Anyway, listen, let's just chop it up. I just want you to tell me about how you got to Broadway Lodge and what addiction was like for you. Let's have a chat.
So I got to Broadway Lodge. There was a course of events that happened. I'd relapsed and life got very unmanageable very quickly. And there was a course of events that happened over about a 4-week period. Okay. It got, pretty dangerous, and my sponsor in Manchester, he's not my present sponsor, but he's like a brother to me, do you know what I mean? Okay. And he was in communication with my family, and I think with what was happening in that month, I think they'd actually accepted the fact, that the son was a goner. Do you know what I mean? And
was that your family?
My family.
Yeah. And so was you in recovery before?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was in recovery before. In 2017, I went to a treatment centre in Manchester. Okay. And then everything went all right. A situation happened in my life, and I kind of put recovery to one side. Okay.
You put it down for a bit.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I put it down completely, to be fair. All right, cool. I felt like the situation that was going on at the time needed my full priority. No one. As a course of that, basically, I relapsed, and the rock bottom was a lot worse than the previous time. Right. Okay.
I've often heard that before.
Yeah,
that
100%.
once you're in recovery, the rock bottom that you might have had that brought you to recovery, if you relapse, it often is worse than
a lot worse. Right. Because you knew you had it. Yeah. Okay. And relapse, I did relapse because I was practicing a program. Right. So there was a good chunk of the 2 years, I think it was 2 days before my second birthday, I picked up a joint. Okay. Now, I never got back. I tried, but it just wasn't possible.
Why not?
I tried another treatment centre. It wasn't possible because I think these treatment centres there were short periods of time. Okay. It was nothing like what the structure is here. Okay. And I think I was that far gone that I needed some intense treatment, if you will, to be able to get back onto a level playing field. Right. Okay. And a good friend of mine, John, he was in communication with my family, and they were just saying basically, as a last resort, what we're gonna do is the last chance. It was last chance saloon this trip down here. Okay. And
what made you decide to come south, though, brother?
Right. So this is what happened. I'd never heard of this place. I'd never heard of Western Supermare, to be fair. Okay. And John's sponsor, a chap called Mike, he'd heard of this place. Okay. So John was in communication with my family. Everyone was working behind the scenes, which, to be fair, if they hadn't been, probably wouldn't be here today. So I owe it to a lot of people, without a doubt.
Well, honourable shout out to John.
John. Yeah, John, my mum says, you know, everyone has an angel in their life. John was mine without a doubt.
Nice.
Nice. And if I ever get married, he'd be the best man at a wedding without a shadow of a doubt.
Cool. So interventions do work sometimes.
100% they do. And it was all happening behind the scenes. I was oblivious. But I mean, with what I was up to, I wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said, we're gonna send you to Weston-super-Mare. And I remember the day. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I typed it in Google Maps, right? And I just started scrolling down the country.
Mm-hmm.
I was scrolling, and I seen it. And I said, I'm not going there. I said, find me somewhere in Manchester. And that was where I was. You find me something. How selfish is that, do you know?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going. And I put the phone down. But they planted the seed. I did want to get well. I didn't want to live what I was doing. I didn't want to do what I was doing. I didn't want to live the way I was living.
Okay.
So I ran back and I said, I'll go. And there were certain conditions that I couldn't leave at the time. Mm-hmm. And, do you know, that was quite traumatic because I did want to get well.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to go away and I knew this stuff worked because I'd done it previously.
Mm-hmm.
And there was mistakes that I'd made before that I could learn from. Mm-hmm. But I was just that sick to death of what was happening. And I was very isolated, which, listen, I was isolated because of my actions, which, mm-hmm. you know, there's repercussions to my actions. And that was the fact that I was on my own.
Repercussions and consequences, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of them. A lot of them. I don't blame anybody because, quite frankly, it's what I deserved at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. However, I wanted out. I wanted to get well. Mm-hmm. So I came down here and it wasn't what I was expecting. Not at all. I think I brought my weights with me. I wanted a space to set my weights up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I thought, do you know what? I think at the time I wasn't expecting it. Would it have come if I knew what it was? In that mindset, probably not.
Okay.
But looking back on it now, without a doubt, I would have done it.
Yeah.
I'd do it all again the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you come during COVID? Was you?
Yeah, lockdown.
Yeah.
So we were in lockdown.
Yeah.
At the time. So there was 7 days down at the building at the bottom.
Yeah. In the GB unit.
In the GB unit.
Honourable mention to the nurses in the GB 100%, unit.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it was daunting at the time. Do you know what I mean? But a part of me knew that when I arrived, all I had to do was toe the line. If I toed the line, I had a good chance. Good. And yeah, I was a different guy. Even walking through the doors today, do you know, this is the first time I've been back. And yeah, it brings feelings, doesn't it? You know, last time I came here, I was broken. Do you know, physically, I looked okay. Yeah. Do you know, I looked okay because I've trained through it. Training's a big thing for my recovery. Mm-hmm. Do you know, so I trained throughout it. Yeah. However, behind the eyes, there's a photograph. And behind the eyes, there's no soul. It's a guy who's dead inside. Yeah. And I did come in with a bit of swagger, you know what I mean, and all that. But that got beaten out of me pretty quick. And do you know, it was a journey with a real happy ending. Cool.
Let's talk about that coming through the door. So you came in through the GB unit. That's obviously the part where I think at that time, we had to have 2 units running, one for the isolation because of the COVID-19. We just had to basically restrict people from coming in just for safety. And then they came up into the main house. So you had, what did you have, 7 days down there?
7 days down there. Yeah. And then I had to go to Manchester, didn't I, for that first situation to deal with. And then I had to do 7 days in a bedroom up here. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me what it was like. So you worked with Andy at the time, yeah.
No, I was working with Chrissy.
Did you work with Chrissy?
Chrissy was my counsellor, yeah.
Okay, I don't know why I thought you worked with Andy.
I did some work with Andy.
Yeah. Okay, so you worked.
Chrissy was my main counsellor.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. Well, tell me about what it was like in the main house, because I remember you well. Yeah. I remember you well, but I won't say anything.
What was it like working with Chris? You know, Chris is a wonderful lady. She's firm but fair. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, I needed that. Yeah. I needed somebody that was going to tell me straight and put me in my place.
Yeah.
And she did that.
Yeah, she doesn't have any problems in doing that.
No.
Do you know one of the things I know about Chris is she's got a very what appears to be a tough exterior, but inside she's as soft as hell. And I do not know a client that has had a bad word to say about her in probably the 18 or 19 years that she's been here.
And that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Not a word. They all talk about her, and they all say exactly the same thing, and they absolutely love the bones of her. So,
and straight away from the get-go, there was a specific subject I didn't want to discuss.
Okay.
So I wanted to pick what we were going to talk about when I got here.
All right. So you wanted to control your therapy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there was one situation that was a bit too raw. I didn't want nothing to do with that. Okay. And she said, "What's the most challenging thing you've got going on at the moment?" And I told her. I said, "But I don't want to talk about that, Chrissy." And she said, "Write it on the board." And I said, "Do I have to?" She said, "Yeah." So we wrote it on the board, and I had to look at it. And obviously that was the main thing that we started to discuss. what the whole 3 months was focused around, to be fair, because it was that challenging subject that we could attach my behaviours to, which was probably, it was a subject, but the behaviour was present in many different scenarios.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was what we worked with, because like we know different scenarios but the same problem.
Yeah.
And it was that what we worked with.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's something I carry through my life today.
So she literally, from the get-go, made you face the situation straight away.
I felt like she just snapped a twig. That's how I felt. She broke me and then rebuilt me back. And it was the most challenging thing to deal with from the get-go. But I suppose that's what it's about, you know. You gotta get uncomfortable to get comfortable. And
Christ.
So that was it, straight from the get-go.
Get in there, Chris. And another honourable shout out to Chris.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, she just had you dealing with it immediately.
Straight from the get-go.
How did you feel about that?
How did I feel?
Yeah, how did you feel?
There was a range of emotions, you know. I was angry, upset, you know, fearful being the main one.
Fear?
Yeah, 100%. You know, because it's when you get here, there's none of that numbing agent that I'd been using.
Right.
It was just raw
emotion.
Yeah. And I think it took me about 4 weeks probably to like thaw out and climatise a little bit.
Yeah.
To actually stop talking and listen, stop pointing. You made me sit on my hands.
Yeah.
You know, I actually thought they said sit on your hands, and you know, I thought that was just like a statement. I sat on my hands.
Yeah.
Until my arms stopped moving when my tongue did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of Sharma's techniques.
Yeah.
When we get some people in treatment that just don't stop talking, what we get them to do is sit on their hands, because it stops them pointing. Because you just get different kinds of characters: black,
100%.
white, red, green, blue, yellow. It doesn't matter what colour they are, but they all kind of exhibit the same behaviour. So we've got a certain kind of techniques that helps them, and eventually it starts to work and it starts to come through.
And it's like that was obviously a defense mechanism for me. Do you know? Aggression and trying to control a situation or a conversation.
Yeah.
So we don't get to how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Cool.
And that's probably how I've lived my life up until I walked through the door. I even believe like the recovery I had in Manchester, all right, I wasn't drinking or I wasn't using, but was I very well? I can probably not as well as they have been down here.
Yeah.
And that was due to the fact of the real soul searching. And do you know, like, there was a time I thought, if I wasn't an alcoholic or a drug addict, what would my life be like? And I can honestly say, I don't think it would be better. You know, I think that some people think that if they weren't an alcoholic and an addict, then life would be better. But I think it would be worse, because I think if I hadn't got down to them depths, then I wouldn't have had to do the soul searching. I wouldn't have had to do the work on myself, and I don't think I would have ever have got to this caliber of person.
Yeah. And I have to support you with that, because what I see with you and what I hear about you, it's the caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there's a level, and then there's levels, and you, to me, appear to be. I mean, I'm just looking at you now, and so you came in and when you came into treatment, you trained. You could see you was training. Obviously, as he said, you brought your weights in and blah blah blah. But you've got a different aura about you today. There's just a confidence and assuredness about you today, which is just, and it's not arrogant. Do you know what I mean? It's not arrogant. I feel a sense of humility about you today, which definitely wasn't there before.
100%
Do you know what I mean?
Wasn't there.
It just wasn't there. And then there's just, it's just, I love that word, caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with me now, it's just like, I just am who I am, do you know, and I just do what I'm doing. And, do you know, people gave me their time. They did things for me that wasn't a transaction. You do something for me, I do something for you. That's how I live my whole life.
Yeah.
You know, in the
That's a great
circles I
word.
was with, it was always like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah.
When you're given and you visibly see somebody reaching out and giving you something for no return, then they lead by example.
Yeah.
So for me now, I will reach out and help other people, and not because I want praise, not because I consider myself as that caliber, just because it's the right thing to do, as I was shown.
Yeah.
And, do you know, I'm a firm believer in karma. I know when I'm doing something wrong. I've made mistakes. I'm a human being.
Yeah.
But making the same mistake twice, that's where the sin comes in, and then I know about it then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just doing what I think's right to do.
Cool. It's funny because I have a client that's just come out of prison. He's been in prison for a while. It's been in recovery, in and out of recovery. And this morning, when you was driving in this morning, I was thinking, who can I reach out to sponsor this geezer? And then I thought, do you know what? I'm going to speak to Andy.
Yeah, I'll be
this
happy
morning.
to help him,
I'm going to speak to you this morning after this conversation, because he just needs some direction.
Yeah.
And obviously I've got loads of people that I can reach out to, but he could do with some direction.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help.
Cool.
I think, do you know, it's especially we mentioned, he's come on leaps and bounds. You know, he's put so much hard work in. It's unbelievable. And
mate, do you know how that geezer? I mean, here, it was challenging for him. When he said that you were sponsoring him, I didn't think that you couldn't sponsor him, but because he's an older guy and you're younger than him, I just thought, how's that going to work? Is he going to be able to take direction? Mate, listen, when I've been speaking to him, he's just a different guy.
100%, yeah. I watched him literally just, one day we were doing some step work at my kitchen table, and I visibly seen his shoulders relax.
Yeah.
Right, and I thought, there's the change. And I encouraged him to, you see, I do it, I think recovery is a bespoke package.
Absolutely.
Right? You've got to find what works for you.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to name any fellowships, but I'm just going to say how it is for me. Mm-hmm. And I introduced this way to and it was one in particular fellowship is quite street. And if you're trying to get away from that street mentality, you can get submerged in it.
Yeah.
But the step work's lengthy. So you get really submerged in it for a long period of time. However, another fellowship is very spiritual, right? And if you're trying to get on a spiritual path, that's perfect. So I mixed the two together.
Cool.
Right? So it's long length step work with the spirituality of another fellowship. Now that worked for me. That works for me a lot.
Yeah.
So I introduced it to him and I said, you know, you've got a bit of time on your hands now, you're in a dry house, do 5 questions a day. Right? No more, no less. Gives you 20 minutes, you know, the connection with the recovery, 20 minutes in a day. But instead of battering it the day before you're supposed to see me or whatever.
You know how it goes.
Yeah, I do know how it goes.
You know how it goes.
First time around.
Yeah.
This gives you a little snippet every single day. Plus, you're not getting bogged down with it. You're not getting tired. So your quality of answers will be a lot better.
Yeah.
And he did it, do you know? And to give him his dues, I normally count how many questions there are. obviously how many days it's going to take them. And then I don't throw the text out until here. And he texts me, do you know, on that day, I'm doing it with another chap at the moment, he's doing the same. And I just find that recovery, it's a bespoke package. It's finding out what works for you, because otherwise it's got to be interesting. It's got to work for you, because if it doesn't, you're going to lose interest.
Exactly.
And then we know what happens. You know, it can be dangerous, and
people die.
I was at a meeting last night, and I found out someone had died. I know a lot of people that died. One guy died in Manchester, my mate Mike from Salford, and yeah, he was 6 years clean, more probably. Me and I've got two good mates of mine, Mike and another mate called Jamie. We went to a Dublin convention.
Right,
we've got happy memories.
Yeah, lovely.
And but yeah, unfortunately, Mike died on a motorbike about 6 months ago, and he was clean and sober for six years.
What happened?
He had a heart attack.
Jesus. And
this just shows how real this is. You know, his heart was damaged because of what he'd done in the past.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, he was one of them that had a heart attack, and his heart couldn't deal with it. And that was a massive blow.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I miss the guy, you know.
Yeah,
I do miss him 100%.
You know, it's funny you should say that. One of the things that recovery doesn't promise you, recovery just promises you a life, but we still have to clean up some of the damage from the past. And there's sometimes, you know, if we've got issues, heart issues, health issues, you know, alcohol does some serious damage to the body. You know, crack cocaine can do some serious damage to the mind, and those things need to be cleared up. So, you know, recovery isn't always rosy. Sometimes we've just got to clear up some of the damage that we've done for the past. And, you know, God bless you. What's your friend's name?
He's called Mike.
Mike, God bless Mike. R.I.P. Mike.
100%. And I agree with what you're saying. Recovery isn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's not.
No.
Do you know? And it's relocating from Manchester. Yeah. There's been a lot of it's been difficult. And some days recovery just stops me making the situation worse. That's it. Because it stops me using, drinking, and then the catastrophic consequences that are going to come related to the situation I'm dealing with. Do you know? Yeah. Some days it is. Some days my mental health can be bad because I suffer with that. But what it's taught me is to accept it. Now, there's certain situations I struggle to accept.
Cool, let's talk.
The situation with my children in Manchester, it's quite difficult. Not going to go into it too much. However, that's been an ongoing situation to date since I got here.
Cool.
I have a really good bond with my children, but when I worry for them, I try and control that situation.
Absolutely, I get that.
Yeah,
I get that.
So there's that kind of stuff that goes on, and some days I'll get up in the morning and my head can be bad. You know, and for nothing.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and that's it.
Yeah.
I just think, it is what it is. I'm built like this. Crack on with the day. And when you do that, it tends to go pretty quick.
Cool. So you've gained some acceptance around the way that your head works and functions.
100%. And I have tools in order to sort it out. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Accepting that fact, it stops feeding it. I used to feed it. I used to think, I'm in recovery, I'm doing everything right. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
You know, it shouldn't happen. People used to say, it's early recovery and all that. But it was.
Yeah.
It was. And you can be doing everything right, but some days recovery just stops me drinking and stops me taking drugs.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve the other problems.
Yeah.
But I do find that the pain is the journey, and where there's pain, there's a lesson to learn, and I'll grow. It
does give you the tools. Recovery does give you the tools to deal with some of the problems, what I just call life's problems that we have, on a day-to-day basis. And I think that the 12-step program certainly helps with that, and particularly around step 2, the ability to just reach out and ask somebody for help, where at times you might not have, you might have just chewed it over in your head and try to solve your own problems and solve your own issues, when in fact that's a madness now. And to me, that if I've got a problem and I can't solve it, the first thing I'm going to do is reach out to somebody. I'm going to quickly think, who can help me with this, and go through it. Whereas before, you'd never do. I would never have done that. It would have just been out of pride. I probably wouldn't have reached out and asked for help. Do you know what I mean?
And that's exactly what it was about. And that's probably where most of my problems, orientated around, because I would not tell you how I felt.
Absolutely.
It took me till 30 years old to even tell you how I felt. A, I wasn't in the right circles to, and B, my pride. And you have this macho alpha male kind of like thinking around it, that I'm not going to tell you that I'm scared of anything, when really that's exactly what I needed to do. And today I will.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can have fear with nothing's changed, right?
No shit.
But in my head, if that carries on, that will snowball.
Yeah.
And then it starts to dictate my day-to-day living.
Yeah.
With one phone call, or even writing it down and reading it back to myself, so I can deal with it internally and solely, right? Without having to bring it to another person. Even that technique works. And I think it's down to just actually being like so sick of that feeling and open it up, getting vulnerable, that getting humble, all the things that it teach you. But if it's like, if we're saying it like it's black and white, if I say it, it's out of my head.
Absolutely. And if I write it, it's definitely out of my head.
I can read it back and think, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading it back, right? If I think about it, 9 o'clock it comes into my head. Come 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is magnified.
Yeah.
It has changed 10 or 12 times.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is just how I'm built sometimes. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you play with the cards you're dealt with. I have to deal with the way it is. But it's taught me to talk.
Yeah.
It's okay to be like that.
Yeah.
And
it's okay to feel the way that you feel sometimes.
Exactly.
And it's okay to express it.
Yeah. And your feeling is how you feel. Feelings and facts. That's how I want to work with. What's factual and how do I feel? And when you work with them, as the months go by, it decreases.
Doesn't it make life just so much easier?
But it makes everything. It's crazy. Every single aspect of your life where Andy's there and it's all in different directions, it all starts to become running fluent, and because it all centers in here.
Yeah.
And that was a main thing of showing vulnerability was something I never ever did.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, with the mental health, and then you're sprinkling chemicals into the bloodstream. Yeah, that's dangerous then. Yeah,
it's a dangerous cocktail, isn't it?
100%, because it comes out in aggression.
Yes.
And then the consequences that are attached to that, suddenly it's gone from a guy who's pretty fearful for certain reasons, sometimes the reasons that can't be identified, to aggression, and the consequences attached to that.
Yeah.
The person that did it originally with the feeling isn't that character.
Yeah.
But because he's not working on himself, he becomes that character.
And then starts living that life.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare, isn't it? I love the fact that you talk about vulnerability and talk about fear, because it's something that, I guess as addicts or just as men, or just anybody in general, let's just, honourable shout out to all the women in recovery that, sometimes we're conditioned not to show our feelings or emotions. And now I think back, from my time in recovery, and I think that's absolute madness. I'm constantly talking to people about, what are you feeling? Tell me what you're feeling, and obviously we look at the facts and feelings as well. But today it's almost alien for me when people are talking about stuff and they're telling me what they're thinking, and I'm like, no, actually, tell me what you're feeling and I might be able to help you. But, it's just, that's just kind of alien to me.
it's I think as well is it's finding the right people to bring the right stuff to.
Absolutely.
You got to have like a list of people you bring certain situations to. Like my family, you know, they never wrote me off. Do you know they didn't?
Yeah.
Without them, I wouldn't be here. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And
what's the however?
However, we don't talk about feelings.
Yeah.
So I bounced out of it and I'm like, let's talk about our feelings. And people aren't built like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important in your life to have the right people to take the right stuff to, so they can help you. So I have a range of guys that I discuss things with, certain different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I was told in treatment by my counsellor, Mr. Steve Bushwhacker, an honourable shout out to him, you need to learn to take things to the correct address.
100%.
And sometimes your family is just not the one.
Not at all.
not at all.
Because that opens up a new kind of worms, because then when they don't know how to respond, which is okay, then you're thinking they don't care.
Yeah. So resentment starts to kick in.
Yeah. It's just picking who you take things to.
Absolutely.
And I have guys, I have recovery guys.
Yeah.
And I also have other guys outside recovery.
Yeah, they bring a balance, don't they?
100%.
You need balance.
And I found that in the dry house.
Yeah.
The dry house was a journey, you know. I'll come on to that in a bit, but I had something that was very good for me in the dry house. Is I started training at a gym, and I had a trainer and like another guy that was involved in the gym, Neil and Sean, and they weren't in recovery. Mm-hmm. And like Neil was a bit of a mentor at the beginning. Yeah. And I used to vent a lot to him, and when I was down, you know, the dry house can be, it can
be intense.
100%.
It can be intense 100%. Sometimes, yes, because it's still feelings and emotions, and you know, but it's just not as intense as in the rehab.
100%. Yeah, so sometimes I'd walk in the gym and I'd be like, this is happening, and I found that balance. I didn't need a recovery conversation.
Yes.
I didn't need what's your part in it. I just needed someone to listen, you know? And, you know, Neil were there, and he helped me out a lot, more than they probably know. And I needed that balance.
God bless Neil.
Yeah, Neil's a good guy, yeah.
Good man.
Yeah, the training was good. And Sean as well. Sean's a good mate of mine. And
good. God bless Sean as well.
That was great. It was good. It was the ingredient that I felt that I needed.
So yeah, I've kind of found the same thing, that I've got quite a few friends that are outside of recovery, and I've got obviously quite a few friends that are inside recovery, and they balance things out. Yeah. You know, so it's not all, you know, recovery related conversations, feelings, emotions out. You say, what's your part? Did you work this? No. They just give me their life experience around that stuff. But what I do is I make sure that I take things to the right people, because sometimes you can get the wrong information and go down the wrong route, and before you know it, you know, you're in a bad place.
You're in a danger zone.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think it was like if I felt like it was, if I knew my part was in it, then it's a recovery thing. Yeah. If I feel like I want to drink on it or use, then it's a recovery thing. But sometimes it was just a little bit of, I needed to let off a bit of aggression. Yes. So I'd get in there and you could see that I was in a bad place. Right, I'd get in the ring and we'll just smash some pads out for a bit. Yeah. And that worked.
Yeah. Dopamine, endorphins, 100%, all that kind of stuff.
It was great, you know. And then obviously if I felt like that it was something that was starting to deteriorate in my mood and the way I was being. Like, I know when I start becoming lazy, I know I'm not right, because I'm not lazy.
You're not that kind of guy.
No, and like, I like to stay active. Too active sometimes, to be fair. Okay. Wendy told me this. She said, when I left, your problem is you'll do too much. And I was like, yeah. And she was right. Life's a lot slower now.
Good.
So yeah, if I felt like my mood was deteriorating and I knew I was going downhill, then it's recovery all day long.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The sport won't help that.
Yeah.
Because I'm distracting myself.
Yeah.
And if I distract myself, I know I'm not dealing with what needs to be done.
Okay.
And that's where recovery comes in.
Cool. So you've been able to find a balance between that and able to identify what you need from what you don't need. Yeah. Sounds good.
And that is, finding that balance is, because I found when I was in the dry house, after you did 4 weeks and then I was allowed to leave. So I was straight up to Manchester.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was landing back after the weekend. 10 days later, I'm back up again. So I was crossing that bridge into
normal living.
Yeah, normal living, if you will. Yeah, relatively normal at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I was having the responsibility of being a father again.
Yeah.
Being around my family.
Yeah.
So I was crossing that bridge, and then I was on the way back down, and I'm in group therapy on the Monday in the dry house, and I'm submerged in sport accommodation again.
Yeah.
And it was just like in and out. And I found that when I then built a life away from the dry house, when I was still there, but I had like what I was doing, it all kind of fell into place pretty easily.
Absolutely.
But crossing the bridge coming back, messed with my head a little bit.
Okay.
But I had responsibilities. There was no way I was going to leave my children for a long period of time without seeing them, because they'd lost me for a little while. You know, that was hard for them. I was going to face up to my responsibilities immediately. So I just had to tackle it the way it came.
Mate, I have to say, I'm going to take you back to. I can't remember. You had a date where you had to go back to Manchester, and you was in rehab. I'm not going to lie, you give me some anxiety because, obviously, I know I don't know too much about your life in Manchester, but I know things weren't. The life you live in wasn't the life that you're living today, and what you used to get yourself involved in. So let's put that aside. But you had to go back and do what you needed to do and come back, and I tell you what, you had me worried. And I must admit, I was really glad that you came back, and you came back safe, and we got through what we needed to get through here, and you completed here, and then went on to the dry house. And there was no way on heaven's earth that I felt that you was going to leave here and return to Manchester. That to me was just like an absolute no.
No,
there's
100%.
just, you needed to just, you just had to be down south with us Southerners for a bit.
Yeah, that's it.
let us help you a bit, but I never really. So in terms of like working and career and all that kind of stuff, I never worried about you about that stuff. I knew that once you got your head straight, because you were so focused and driven like that, I didn't think it wouldn't be an issue. But I just knew that you needed to. Certainly, the family. It's not even the family. The kids' situation. I know that was going to be a challenge for you, and obviously going back to Manchester. But in the dry house, I never worried about you at all, not once. It's, with respect, I knew that once you done what you needed to do, you was going to do what you needed to do, because that's just the way that you're built. Yeah. So I'm just really pleased that you got back and then got back here and completed and went off to our dry house and then started your journey there. And I kind of understand the, one foot in recovery, then coming back, 1 foot back in life with the kids and all the stuff and all the, obviously the challenges you've had with the kids up in Manchester and the ex-partner, so to speak. But you've kept going. Yeah,
it's the situation in Manchester now is it's good. I'll be lying if I say my heart isn't in Manchester.
Cool.
I think my heart is up in Manchester, and who knows what the future holds. But if I was to go back now, I'm prepared. I'm okay. I wasn't back then.
Yeah. I absolutely 100% expect you to phone me one day and say, yeah, I'm back home.
Yeah. I'm thinking fortnight here, fortnight there, because obviously work's going well down here.
Yeah.
And I think from a father perspective, I need to be around my kids more. Yeah. And that's what's going to be happening.
Yeah, I get that.
From a selfish perspective, if I was to go back, I'd be sad because I've built a life here.
Yeah.
But my kids come first all day long.
I get that. I get that. I get that. And I have to say, I have noticed, certainly with some of my northern clients, there's a different, there's a different energy about them, and eventually everybody wants to go back. They want to go home. Yeah. They want to go home. I've had a few clients, one of my clients, she was from Manchester and she was down here, but eventually she wanted to go home. And whenever I go up there and I see her there, it's just almost like it's almost like it's not a different country, but she's with her people. She's with her tribe. They speak differently. There's certain. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it. And I think it was frosty at the beginning.
Yeah.
But my bond now.
Yeah.
With not just my children, with my family members.
Yeah.
I mean, when you tear through people's lives, like your family's lives, over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to take time to repair.
Yeah.
Right. So at the beginning, it was like, oh, he's back. Do you know what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But now, it's different.
They trust you now.
They trust me.
Yeah, you've earned back the trust that you absolutely ripped apart.
Oh, I demolished it.
Yeah.
I demolished everyone's lives. You know what I mean? I did, and well, I think to the point where when you now I'm a father of two. Do you know what I mean? And now I'm of same thinking, and you know I'm emotionally intelligent now with how I feel. With what my family witnessed, if I had to go through that with my children, yeah, that would really upset me. The situations that I was in, I wouldn't want my son to be in. So I think now things are a lot better, and you know, when they're a lot better and a lot smoother, when I come back down, sometimes I think, why am I here? But you know what? It's not a decision to make on a whim. It is in my thinking. And I believe that everything happens at the right reasons. Do you know, everything, I believe my path's laid. Do you know what I mean? It's already laid out. Do you know, I believe in all that because I've seen so many coincidences that I'd be a mug not to believe in it. So I do. And when the time's right, it will be right. At the moment, everything's running fluently. It's nice and calm. And it makes the trips back to Manchester a lot easier.
So, I love the word calm because that's just, you know, from chaos to calm. That's the only thing that I want. I'm always saying that. I even say that to my partner. I say that to the dogs when the dogs are playing up. We just need some calm in here. I don't want chaos. I don't want any crazy stuff. I don't want no drama.
No.
I just not about that, and that's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah, I'm not about drama. I think with calm becomes you become constructive. You know, it's like there's in my line of work. There's a lot of organising, and that's 50% of it. Organising it, staying on top of it, and it has to be calm. Otherwise, it rubs off in all different areas.
Yeah, it does.
And yeah, that brings stress.
I had a moment this morning when you was on your way here when one of my, let's just call him a cousin, messaged me. He's been trying to get in recovery for a long time, and it's probably been 15 years he's been trying to get into recovery, and he texts me this crazy message, and because he's got resentments with me about because I've not done this or done that for him, and he's attached some expectations to me, and for a moment I had that that moment when you get a message and you read it, it's like literally it just lit me up.
Yeah. Just want to bite.
Yeah, literally. I had to calm myself down and constructively respond to him.
That's it.
But absolutely be honest with him and just let him know about his expectations. But calm rules for me. Here, I've just tried to change it. You said something, right? And I really want to get back to it, which I love. Recovery is a bespoke package.
Yeah.
Right? Now, one of the things that we've tried to bring in here is make it treatment individualised. One size package does not fit
100%.
Not
100%.
Doesn't fit all. And what we used to do here is try this one size package, and it doesn't fit all. And what we've done is try to have a bespoke, I love that word, bespoke package for people coming in here, because not everybody is the same. You know, people have gone through different traumas, different situations, and yes, we've got a set of rules that we would like people to follow, but in terms of the treatment, it's now even more individualized than it was when you was here. Because, you know, over a period of time, I recognised that, you know, we can't keep doing the same things.
I agree. It can be sometimes like if you're, obviously we all have like guidelines we need to hit, sponsorship, step work, meditation, all the stuff that's the ingredients that have to happen. And I think if you go to a meeting, or some people, well, I know this has happened to a couple of people because a few people approached me about it. If you do what somebody else is doing to a T, like follow them exactly, that could possibly be more damaging than it is if you actually pick your own way.
Yeah.
And
you've got to pick what works for you.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like medication as well. Like, you know, if you're going to the doctor and you're saying, I need this, you know in your heart if it's wrong, but some people do need something different.
Absolutely.
And it's like you said, not one jumper fits everyone. Some people can come into recovery and haven't got mental health problems. Some people can have really severe ones. If you're relying on the program and early recovery to rectify that, sometimes it might not happen.
Yeah.
So you have to seek outside help.
Absolutely.
I do therapy every 14 days.
Cool.
I get a lot out of it. It's not 12-step based. However, it's an event. It's an hourly event for me.
Yeah.
And I need that. Do you know? I think finding different ways, in them guidelines, finding different ways. And if you have to mix it all up, fellowships are fellowships. I don't have one in particular one I stick to. A meeting's a meeting. If I like something that's said, or I like the way it's structured, I'll go and have a go.
Yeah.
So recovery as a whole, there's a lot of different angles. There's a lot of different directions you can go. And it's just finding the one that works for you. And do you know what? I chop and change it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to stay stagnant.
Yeah.
You know, I have a home group, I do a bit of service, and then I'm off, I go to another one.
Yeah.
And it's all about keeping it interesting. Because if I get bored, I resent it.
And then we know what happens with boredom sometimes for some people.
Gets put to one side, and it can be 6 months down the line. I can make that fatal mistake.
Yeah.
But it happened months and months and months before.
Absolutely.
When I had no defence, when my head clicks and it says it's a good idea. Normally, if I'm in recovery or I'm practicing like recovery, my head will say it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
If I'm not, it'll say yeah, it is, and I'll stick with that. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't want to end up there again.
No, not at all. Andy, listen, it's always an honour and a pleasure to speak to you, as even though I don't speak to you as much as I'd like to, just because of life circumstances, challenges and difficulties. But I kind of really want to. I know you're working, you've got your family back, and you know those are kind of the things that most people aspire to if they've got family and kids and that. And you know, from day one, I think when you was here, you always spoke about your kids. It's your son and daughter, isn't it? Yeah. I remember your son and daughter, and so I know that was always going to be a priority, and quite throughout this podcast, you've spoken about, you know, I'm a father. I need to be a father. You know, I need to be in my kid's life, and I love that, particularly coming from a man. You know, I love that myself, and I felt exactly the same. You know, the most important thing when I cleaned up was I need to go and sort my kids out. I need to go and sort my son out. I had to, because otherwise my recovery would not have. It's just been rubbish. You know, I'd have just been running around, you know, pretending to be somebody, pretending to do something when I wasn't actually doing it right. You know, so I kind of really respect that. So I just want you to just tell me, what would your advice be to somebody coming into Broadway Lodge, you know, with your experience of coming through Broadway Lodge? What do you think, or what could you say to somebody that helped them get through the process here?
Listen. You got to listen.
Okay.
And if you don't agree, you have to just see what's visually in front of you.
Okay.
You know, when I got here, other people here knew better than me. And I think you have a little bit of a laugh, that's important, do you know what I mean? It's like lighten the soul a little bit, but get stuck in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, get stuck in, because this is now like a little training camp for life. Mm-hmm. And you need to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
You need to pick up the tools, open your mouth if you need to. And when you get out, build your network, because although everybody in here is at the same time, you know, you gel with people. When you leave, unfortunately, some don't make it, some do. But everyone has their own life, everyone has their own path, mm-hmm. and they go back to it. Yeah. It's about building a network when you get out.
I'd say that like you said, this is for me. This is like school. This is like school for emotions that addiction has brought us here to learn, to deal with, to understand.
Yeah.
And you're right. And I think we always had these conversations. I think it's a few years now. We had these conversations that, you know, you have an amazing moment here. You spend some real intimate moments with people. You share some real intimate details. You share some you hear some real tragic stories, and that is a moment in time, and you kind of live with that. It kind of really stays in your soul. However, when you leave here, not everybody's going to make it.
Unfortunately so.
Yeah, sadly so. I mean, I remember the cohort that you went with, and there's some people that are absolutely smashing it, and there are some people that, struggled, really struggled.
I see some of them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do see some of them, and I hope to get back.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I do.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, this is, when we come in here, we're broken, we're on death's door, that's the facts. And when you're starting to get your emotions back, and you hear people's struggles and the pain and your own pain, you gel together.
Yeah. The pain brings us together, doesn't
Exactly.
it? Yeah.
And even in the dry house, I mean, some magic happened there for me, but it really happened in the dry house. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. I'm grateful for everyone that's helped me on my journey. Like, genuinely, I am.
Yeah.
Right? And it was when you're given that leg up, and you're given, people hold you when you can't, when you're struggling, you get a bond with people.
Yeah.
Then life gets real. You get back out, you go out there, and people either go back out or, God forbid, they die. And then the ones that do get well, they had a life before they came in, so they're going to have a life again. And everyone goes their own way, and that's all right. That's cool. Yeah. But if you're holding on to that, and that disappears, then you're on your own, and you need the network.
Yeah. So what you're saying, that it's important that everybody, when they leave here, builds a network.
Yeah.
Most important. And it doesn't have to, and for me, it doesn't have to be the fellowship as well. You just need a group of people around you that can guide you, that you can talk to and point you in the right direction. And sometimes it's the fellowship, and it's just for me, I don't know who it is. I don't care whether it's the church, the synagogue, whatever. It don't matter to me. But you need to find a supportive network of friends, groups, faith,
Exactly.
religion, whatever, that help you to stay away from addiction. Because for me, once you pick up that is a return to hell. And as you've said, if you've been shown a way and then you go back, it's even worse.
It's like, if you think you've hit rock bottom, well, I can talk only personally for myself.
Yeah.
I thought I'd hit rock bottom. Wasn't even a scratch. It wasn't even a scratch on what was coming. And like you said, I'd pay a lot of money to take myself to hell, and then I'd pay a load more to secure my place there. And it's insane. But over and over and over again, I thought that this would help me, and this is where the insanity comes in. Do you know? You've got a problem, you add fuel to the fire, and then I had more and more, and it's...
Do you know what, mate? That just so... I mean, I haven't realised, but that just so... and that's the reason why I haven't, because the thought of going back to the hell that was addiction absolutely scares the living daylights out of me. And it, I was saying a conversation with my cousin, as I said to you this morning on text, where that's just not an option.
No, it scares me to death, because not only are you living in absolute crippling pain, but what scares me the most is the things that are most precious to me in this life are completely out of my heart and my head. Yeah, they're completely gone.
Yeah.
And I value these things so much, like the love for my children, my family, my friends. Friends doesn't even give it justice. I've got proper brothers. We're brothers.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Indeed.
And when what scares me about it is, along with the mental pressure and everything like that, it's the fact that the love for it all is gone to the point where I don't want to be on this earth. And if I sink my ship, there's people on board, and there's especially my children. I'm dragging them underneath with me because they have to live with that. And it's what's scary about the relapse is you're so disconnected and so delusional that the most precious things on this earth mean nothing because you're so imbalanced.
Wow. Just frightening listening. It's scary. It's just that thought about the things that you hold so dear, the things that you say that you love so dearly, you literally don't care about anymore. But yet you will tell people, oh, I love my kids, I love my family, I love this and that. But once you start picking up, that's gone.
You love nothing. And you don't want to live in the pain anymore. So you quite happily exit the world.
Do you know what? When you was talking about this, I was just thinking about one of the most important things that I always want to protect is my head, because of the emotional imbalance that can come when I start thinking a little bit, let's call it crazy. And one of the things that I've learned to do is just protect my head. You know, and I'm kind of hearing you say the same thing with your mental health, that sometimes you need to. Because it's that thing that can start making you think the wrong thing, different things, and before you know it, you want to try to medicate that.
100%, and I mean, that's how it ends up. You know, if you don't do it, but if you do it, you know, it gives you. Like I'm a very calm, happy guy these days. Do you know what I mean? And I don't need material things to make me happy. I don't need other people to make me happy. I'm cool with me, and I'm cool with what I'm doing. And you know that. Although it can end up the way that I've just been talking about, which is real dark and real gloomy, do you know what I mean? On the plus side of that, do you know, it gives me a life, you know what I mean? But it also, like, it changes the way I am with my kids, you know, the way I speak, you know, to my children, with my son especially. It's all right to talk about how you feel. I'm constantly telling him I'm loving him, probably too much, you know what I mean? But on the negative side, when it gets bad, it's terrible. But when it gets good, it's great.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good. And it's what I always thought I needed in life. I don't. I've got what I need. And it's small little things, but the things that matter. And it's about finding what matters. And all right, I like to treat myself sometimes. I work hard, but I don't buy something to make me happy. I don't buy something because I think I'll need it. I only need the important things, and I've found them now.
I love that. I'm gonna end this podcast on this. Find what matters.
100%.
Recovery is just life beyond substance misuse.
Yeah,
you know?
that's it.
And then hopefully it becomes the norm, and then you don't go back to substance misuse because you're just living a life that you value, and as you said, you treasure, and you don't want to throw away, and you certainly don't want to sink your ship.
No.
Dude,
Thank you very much.
God bless you. Thank you for coming down.
Yeah.